different belief system. No matter where you go, even here in the United States, there's a different culture. If you ever been to Chick-fil-A, there's a culture at Chick-fil-A. No matter where you go, you can go to Chick-fil-A in Florida, you can go to the Chick-fil-A up the street, the culture and environment is going to be the same. Their service is always going to be filled with generosity. It's always going to be a people-first type of service. It's always going to be full of love and full of kindness. That's the service that you get when you go to Chick-fil-A, and that's all across the world, all over the globe. That's Chick-fil-A. Why? Because there's a culture there. There's a culture there that has been imparted, and it's being imitated all over the world at every Chick-fil-A. The type of culture that we're trying to implement here is a culture that comes only from God. It's a culture that comes only from Jesus Christ himself. When he came here to the earth as he was born, he came to implement a kingdom type of culture. That's the same culture that we're trying to implement here. A culture of love, a culture of grace, a culture of mercy, a culture that values and honor God. You don't get this at the public school because it's a different culture. It's a different culture. And that's not to belittle any type of public school. There's good public schools as well. But here at New Horizon, New Direction, we're trying to imitate the culture of God. And to imitate the culture of God, we have to value God. We're not trying to just give you science, math, social studies, and then you go home. We also are trying to give you a spiritual education as well. Because honestly, that's more important than science, social studies, math, and all your other curriculums. Your spiritual education is the most important. So the type of culture that we're trying to implement here is a culture that comes from the kingdom of God. And it's a culture of love, it's a culture of grace, it's a culture of mercy. It's a culture that when you see an individual next to you, your neighbor, rather than trying to tear them down, you build them up. It's a culture that rather than looking down on each other, you seek to encourage each other. It's a type of culture that when you come in, when you walk through those doors, you come in with a positive attitude, ready to learn, ready to respect the staff members here, ready to be the best student that you possibly can be. That's the type of culture that we want here. It's the type of culture that when you come in, you're dressed appropriately. You represent your family members from home. And when you come here, you're dressed appropriately. That's why we have uniforms. Because why? We want you to look professional. We want you to look professional. That's the type of culture that we're trying to create here. And that culture has to be, and if there's a hindrance to that culture, then guess what? You have to remove that individual. Whether that's a student or a staff, you have to remove that individual that's trying to hinder the culture. But I don't think anybody have a problem with that type of culture, right? Moving on. Secondly, the reason why we do chapel. Why chapel? Is it just to be religious? Is it just because we just some crazy people who love God? Why do we do chapel? Anybody want to take a wild guess? Go ahead. To worship God. That's the best answer right there. To worship God. That's why we have chapel. Just as Miss Mann just spoke about, not because we're trying to act like we're better, not because we're trying to act like it's about us receiving glorification, to worship God. We understand that we're created, and that's our purpose, to worship God. That's what I'm created for. That's what you're created for. You're created to worship God. And so that's why we have chapel. We have chapel so that you can come here, worship God, and understand that God has to be first place in your life. He has to be first place in your life. In order for you to understand your true purpose, understand your true meaning in life, God has to be first. Only God can give you your true purpose and true meaning. But also understand, I didn't say that's the only purpose and only meaning that you can adapt to. But only God can give you your true meaning and true purpose. But you can adapt to any other purpose and meaning that you think that you're here for, rather than the purpose and meaning that God has for you. But only God can give you the true purpose and true meaning. So when we come here in chapel, it's for you all to receive spiritual education. And we're going to try to implement some different things where you all can ask questions. Mainly more so for the teenagers, also for your younger students as well. But we want you, when you come here, if you have questions, because we all have questions about God. We all have questions about life. Why am I here? What's my purpose? What am I living for? Why am I created? We all have questions about life. Even me at 24 years old, I've been walking with Jesus for about 7 years now. I made the decision when I was 17, being incarcerated. A lot of you have heard my story, but even I still have questions. Even I still have questions about my faith. Even I still have questions about my belief in the God that I serve. And so I know that in your young minds you have questions. And so I want to be able to answer those questions. And we also want to make sure that the staff members around you are able to answer your questions. Because it's no longer good enough just for a Christian to be able to not be able to defend their faith. And we want you all to be able to defend your faith. If someone asks you why you believe what you believe, I want you to be able to defend your faith. I want you to be able to tell a person why you believe what you believe and why you believe that it's the right way. That's very important. So that's why we have chapel. So that you all can come here and be educated spiritually, educated about life, meaning, and purpose. Thirdly, as I talked about for the Worldview Survey, this survey is going to consist of some questions. And like I say, this is mainly for the teenagers. So we apologize to your younger students. But once you get there, we have a survey for you as well, okay? But for the teenagers, this Worldview Survey, this is going to help myself. This is going to help Ms. Mann. This is going to help the other staff members be able to kind of identify. You won't put your name on this survey, so I want you to be able to answer these questions very honestly. Nobody knows that it's you. You don't put your name on this survey, but it's going to consist of some questions to let us know where you are in your worldview. They're going to consist of questions of, do you believe in God? Because we just can't assume that everybody who comes here believes in God. We can't assume that. So it's going to ask you some questions as if, do you believe in God? And if you, what is your belief about God? What do you feel like is your purpose in life? And so it's going to ask you these different types of questions just to try to see where your worldview is. And the reason that I'm giving you this survey, it's the same type of survey that I give a lot of college students in my college ministry in Athens. Same type of survey. And the reason that we give them this survey, in order so that we can see where you are spiritually, and see what type of state you are in, and see how we can better help give you a biblical worldview. That's our goal here, is to give you a biblical worldview. At the end of the day, and we don't do that secretly. We don't do that. We do that. We try to be very open about that. Our goal here is to give you a biblical worldview. Your parents, them are aware of that as they sign you up and pay for the tuition here. Our goal here is to give you a biblical worldview. Our goal here is to give you teachers and staff members who will represent God. That's our goal here. That's the goal here, is to give you a biblical worldview. Why? Why do you need a biblical worldview? Because this is the best worldview. It's the only right worldview that you can possibly have. And you say and a lot of people say, that sounds very narrow-minded. That's very narrow-minded to say that only the Bible has the proper worldview. You have so many different cultures and so many different religions, and you have so many different worldviews in life. And how can you say that only God, the Bible, has the only best worldview to go off of? A book that is very ancient, a book that has been around for centuries. There's billions of people in the world. How is the Bible the only best worldview? And I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I'll answer that question very quickly for you. When you talk about religion and when you talk about worldviews, all of them have to be tested to see how accurate they are and how they correspond to answer the questions for you about life, meaning, and purpose. Every worldview, every religion has to be able to answer those three questions with logic, with rationale, and with history. Christianity, in its worldview, is the only worldview that answers those questions with logic, rationale, and history. How do I know that? I know that first and foremost because I study every religion that there is. I have 2 years left in my bachelor's. I'll be attaining a bachelor's degree in theology, and I have 2 years left with that. And so I've studied every religion that there is. I've studied different worldviews, and I've studied different cultures. And not only have I studied different cultures and different worldviews, but I've experienced the worldview that I advocate. I experienced the worldview that I embrace. I've experienced the power of God. I've experienced the love of God. I've experienced the grace of God. I've seen Him transform my life firsthand. So if I'm a witness of that, then I know that's the best worldview. I know that's the best worldview. And there are some that will say, well, there are other people that are very satisfied and content with their worldview, and there's some people that are very content with the culture that they come from. It's possible to be a Christian just by culture. Some people will say they're a Christian just because they grew up in a Christian home and they grew up around Christian parents. That makes you a Christian by culture. But it doesn't really make you a Christian. What really makes you a Christian is you got to have a personal experience. And that's the only worldview in religion where you got to have a personal experience to be a Christian. You don't have to have a personal experience to be a Jew. You're born a Jew. You don't have to have a personal experience to be a Hindu. It's integrated in their culture. You don't have to have a personal experience to be a Buddhist. It's integrated in their culture. Christianity answers the questions of purpose, life, and meaning. And I want to help you all gain that biblical worldview so that because I know the transformation that will take place in your life, and I know how successful you can be with that mindset. And so you're going to take that survey, I guess, in between classes, kind of at the end of the day. Make sure you turn it in to Miss Mann. I don't know how she wants you all to do that in between your classes, but in between your classes, before the day is over, we're going to want that survey back, finished and completed, if that's possible, please. And I'll close with this. I can't emphasize enough of the opportunity that you all have here. I emphasize this every time I come here, the opportunity that you all have here. It's not the same opportunity that I had. It's not the same opportunity that a lot of people you all age have. I know Miss Mann personally because not only she's my aunt, and as her daughter said, she is a godly woman. And I know her vision, and I know the type of spirit that she operates out of. I know the type of structure she's trying to do here. You all have y'all are in a position to be successful. Just by walking through those doors. Just by your parents being willing to choose new horizon, new direction. That in itself puts you all in a position in life to be successful. It puts you in a position in life to be successful. For a number of reasons. Not only because of the leadership here. Not only because Miss Mann is very qualified in what she's doing. You have the position to be successful because you're going to be in an environment that promotes success. You're going to be in an environment that won't allow you to fail. You're going to be in an environment that's going to always be a hand ready to lift you up when you're discouraged. That's the type of environment that you all are in. So you are in a position already to be successful in life. And the people that are here are equipped. They are here for a reason. They are here because God, purpose for them to be here to equip you all to be successful. So take advantage of the opportunity that you have before you. I hope the week is already starting out great for everyone. We're looking to do some exciting things this new year. We want to implement some